Hey guys, Bruno here from Flight Tech with another episode of Tycon Tuesdays. We're here with Seth Allen, and we're going to talk a little bit about some of the questions we had from our recent video, Seth. You remember we did the calculator, the Remote Pro System Power Calculator, and great video. Appreciate you coming in and helping us out with that. But we've actually been having some questions about it because there's a little tab, a little ticker on the top for the battery type. Now, we went into a lot of details about what voltage and amps and then the watts, the operations of day, the extra sunlight per day, all that good stuff of how to get the Remote Pro systems out of that calculator. However, we've had some questions about that lead acid and the lithium batteries. So
Sure.
What is the deal with that? When should people select one over the other? Give us a little bit of insight about the difference there.
Absolutely. So there's a lot of pros and cons to using one battery or the other, right? Lead acid has been around a lot longer. People are more familiar with it. It's non-hazardous, right? So shipping internationally, shipping air isn't a big deal, right? There's lithium. The technology is still relatively new. It is a hazardous or considered hazardous material. So shipping internationally is more difficult. Shipping state to state, you need to be certified in order to ship lithium batteries. So there, like I said, pros and cons to using one over the other. Now let's talk about that. So lead acid, we have three different batteries, lead acid, what we call SLA, right? They're all sealed lead acid batteries, right? So they're not, you can put them on their side. I think a lot of the people that have been in this industry for 30 years are maybe used to the non-sealed, right? But these are all sealed lead acid. They're heavy, right? They have a limited lifespan. Typically, there's about a 5-year float life with the lead acid batteries. They take up a lot more room because they are, they're limited as to their amp hours, right? And then lastly, you can only discharge down to about 50%. Lead acid batteries don't let you discharge to zero. They need at least or roughly close to 50%. So if I have a 50 amp hour battery, I'm really only getting about 25 amp hours from that battery. Now, when you're dealing with lithium, almost the opposite, right? They're lightweight. You can drain down to zero without any issue. They have a longer lifespan. Downside, they're more expensive. Now, the cost has come down dramatically. And what we've noticed now, like let's do a scenario where I do a Remote Pro calculation. If I do something and I plug in the numbers and it says you need a 200 amp hour battery bank of your lead acid batteries, I'm really getting 100 amp hours, right? Because I'm not going to discharge below that 50% mark to, keep the integrity of the battery for as long as possible. Now, if I'm doing that 200 amp hour, that's 4 batteries. I can do a lithium and it will give me the output in the calculator of 100 amp hours. So I'm cutting my battery size in half, reducing the amount of space that it's taken up in the enclosure because I can drain those down to zero. So a 200 amp hour battery bank of lead acid is going to be about equal to a 100 amp hour battery bank of the lithium. Cost is roughly the same as well. For example, meaning 2 batteries of your lead acid will be about the cost of 1 of your lithium. So now there's also some downsides to the lithium. Besides, it is lightweight, lasts longer, you get more capacity, right? It also hates the cold. So if you're dropping below freezing inside that enclosure, it's not going to be able to, the solar controller will not be able to charge those batteries. So if you're in extreme cold environments, you're going to want to stick with the lead acid. Now, there are also temperature ranges for lead acid, but it is a lot more forgiving when you're under the freezing temps. So typically, if you're what I would call, I call it the Mason-Dixon line, right? So roughly about the southern part of the U.S., or cut the U.S. in half, southern part can usually use those lithium batteries, whereas in the northern states, typically not. Now, we are working on the technology to add heaters to the batteries. So we hope to release those in the coming months. Might still be a little ways, but that's something that our engineers are working on. so that we can have them in different environments. Now, right now, like I said, in order to ship, you need to be certified to ship those batteries. Everybody that puts hands on these batteries or paperwork even needs to be certified in order to ship. So we can drop ship the batteries on behalf of other companies and ship them in the US. We are not certified to ship outside the US because each country, you need to be certified and pay for that certification, and we haven't done that yet. If there's a great demand, we'll look into it. But right now, we can ship anywhere within the US. We are fully certified to do that.
Okay. Well, that's where we come in, right? So I mean, we have relationships with a lot of different freight forwarders that, you know, are going to be able to have those certifications and handle that in case we need to ship that outside the country. So we got your back on that one, man. So yeah. So okay. So what I'm hearing here is that if you look at it as a power per dollar, maybe a watts per dollar or amp hour per dollar, right?
Yeah.
The amp hour per dollar. Each one, they come out to be more or less the same, really.
Pretty equal. Yeah.
Okay.
It used to not be the case, right? The lithium batteries were double the price, you know, the amp hour per dollar, you know, if we're going to compare it, because that's the best way to compare it. It was almost double, right? But the cost has come down dramatically as the technology improves and the ways to manufacture has improved. So, right, dollar per dollar, you're pretty equal. You'll obviously cut back on space inside the enclosure or be able to have a smaller enclosure. One downside, like with our larger Remote Pro systems, right? We have our large steel enclosure. We can fit 8 batteries in there. You wouldn't be able to do 8 lithium batteries. They're limited to chain together 4 batteries together. So you wouldn't be able to put 8, but 8 batteries would be 400 amp hour in that large steel enclosure. You can put 4 batteries and get the same amp hour comparison.
Gotcha. Okay. And then besides the restriction you have of the temperature, that lead acids can go to lower temperatures. So I mean, it seems like the trade-off of having the battery being able to go to 0 is worth it to actually add a heater. Like that's what you guys are doing, and creating a heater for the battery so that the lithium battery can maybe become kind of the front runner in all these remote power systems, and basically be able to go down to 0 on the batteries if you have to. So how important is that? What happens with the lead acid if you go down to, let's say, 20%?
So it'll drastically affect the lifespan of the battery, right? So it's not to say that if you drain it to 20% the first time, it's going to affect it, right? But if you're constantly drawing down and going below that 40%, 50%, you know, if you're doing that on a regular basis, then yes, that will drastically affect the lifespan of the battery. So you're going to have to replace your batteries a lot sooner than you normally would.
You would need to. Okay, gotcha. So that's the big trade-off. I mean, it's the long-term investment really that you're getting out of it. That, you know, with the lithium, it'll kind of last you longer because you have that play there. You can go all the way down to 0. Whereas a lead acid, you got to worry about it a little bit more.
And those lithiums will give you 8 to 10 years lifespan.
8 to 10 years. Wow. And the lead acid, you said 5?
About 5 years.
5 years. Wow. That in itself is already almost double. I mean, that's great. Wow. Okay. Cool. Very interesting. You know, kind of the differentiating factors there, the lead acid and the lithium. This is directly from a question from our calculator video. So keep sending us those comments down there, putting in your questions, and we'll do everything we can to get back to you with either answering on the comments or some more videos explaining in more detail about the different solutions we have here from Tycon. So appreciate it, Seth, and I'll see you guys next time.
Thanks, guys.
Hey guys, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you can get the latest from FlyTech. Thanks.